This is Myths and Legends, episode 186. Don't be weird. This is a podcast where I tell stories from mythology and folklore. Some are incredibly popular stories you think you know, but with surprising origins. Others are stories that might be new to you, but are definitely worth a listen. The three men had seen better days. The war that was supposed to bring them glory and riches, had left them worse off than when they joined. They couldn't even make it home without begging on the road. Still, they stuck together. After all they had been through, they were like brothers. During the day, they walked and begged, and when they were lucky, ate. At night, they kept watch, lest an animal attack or a thief come to steal what little they had. On the first watch of the night, one of the soldiers built a fire and sat back against the tree. He looked out in the darkness of the forest, and then to the elf in red sitting by his fire, and then back to the... Wait. He jumped when he looked at the elf, sitting there by the fire. The creature looked up to him with a grin. Hey! Oh, whoa, don't worry. There are sinister evil creatures, and there are cool ones that give gifts. I'm the latter. And it's not even like a monkey's paw thing. You guys were brave, and you were good. You fought, and the king that you fought for left you to fend for yourself after you gave him victory. It shouldn't be like that. Here. The elf handed him a cloak, saying that this was special. Put it over your shoulders, and anything you wish for will be done for you. The man thought he might be dreaming, but the elf told him to take a look at it in the light of day. After a night of watches, the three men snapped awake. They had news. After a very polite but a little insufferable, "No, you go first, no, you go first," the first man finally took the initiative and presented his cloak. He said he knew this sounded crazy, but a magical elf had come to him in the night and said that this would give him anything he wished for. The soldier who did the second watch said that it wasn't crazy because he had the exact same thing. Well, not the same thing. His was a purse. Not a purse, but like a coin pouch. He said that the elf had come to him as well, saying stuff about how they had been treated unfairly and weren't paid. Apparently, if he just dipped his hand into this, he would always pull out a handful of gold. "Oh," the third soldier said. The other two turned to him. What did he get?" He sighed. He said that the elf remarked that they didn't get the love or recognition that they deserved, so he got a horn. If he played it, a crowd would come. The other two looked. "Oh, so..." "Yeah, so exactly like a normal musical instrument," soldier number 3 remarked. The other two patted him on the back. "Hey, there was no reason to be sad. Look, they were brothers in arms, and they shared in the horrors of battle. They would share their blessings now." First up, the soldier with the cloak put it over his shoulders. "What say he give this a spin?" The other two smiled. He pointed on the horizon. Castle, orchard, stables, way too many horses. And, like magic, because it was magic, those things blinked into existence. The second soldier, soldier number 2, purse soldier, dipped his hand into the bag. He pulled out a fistful of gold. He handed it to his friends and pulled out another, which he also handed to the other soldiers. He pulled out fist after fist of gold, spilling it on the ground, until he had a pile the size of which none of the three men ever thought they would see in their lifetimes. A servant drove by, pulling a carriage drawn by 3 dapple gray horses. He pulled up to them. He saw them standing there. Did his masters want to ride to their home? As they got into the gilded carriage, soldier number 3 asked the man, did he, always exist, or was he taken from somewhere else? Is he 5 minutes old? The servant shrugged. He didn't know. Those don't seem like questions we should concern ourselves with. Here we are. Home. And they were home. Inside, there were countless servants to tend to the soldiers' every whim. They had people come from afar to clothe them in the latest fashions. They had the best chefs in the kitchens, despite everyone being only a few days old, I guess. And most importantly, they had each other. When they learned more about the area, they found that they were close to a kingdom. The three agreed. Let's be good neighbors and go say hi. Well, as it turned out, the three young men were about the same age as the king's daughter, a princess. And the king, seeing three guys roll up in a gilded carriage, assumed that the three men were royalty, because who else has the gall to drive around in a gilded carriage in a time of pestilence and starvation? He invited them in. It was there that the trouble started. The three soldiers were mingling among the nobility, but the middle soldier, soldier number 2, the one with the purse, was off exploring the palace. There, he ran into the princess, and she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. And he froze. She asked, how was he doing? He smiled and nodded. Fine, good. How are you? She pursed her lips and nodded. Well, she should be getting back to the party. I have a magic purse, the soldier blurted. The princess blinked. Pardon? He held up the purse. It gives me all the gold I could ever want. Want to see? The princess nodded. Okay. 3 handfuls of gold later, and a long explanation about the elf and cloak and horn, the princess had warmed up to the man. Hey, did he like wine? He said that he didn't really drink much on account of being destined to being shoot. Why wouldn't someone drink wine in the Middle Ages when they had every reason to? He loved dysentery. Nope. The princess laughed. He was so funny. Here, how about some wine? Hey, soldier number 2? The voice knocking at the door called. It's time to go. Soldier number 2? Soldier number 2 snorted awake. Was that soldier number 1? What time was it? He blinked and looked around the room. The gold all around shimmered in the candlelight, and he rose, his hand grazing the velvet of the couch. He cracked his back as he walked over to the door. Hey, bud, time to go, soldier number 1 said. You all right? Soldier number 2 said that he was just groggy. He had been drinking wine with the princess, and he guessed he had fallen asleep. Soldier number 1 glanced around the room. Look at you. Is she still in there? I want to say hi. I didn't get to meet her. Soldier number 2 shook his head. No, he had woken up alone. They hit it off well. He told her about the... Just then, his hand felt his purse, or the lack of the purse. Oh no. The 3 men found the king, still hanging out and entertaining guests. At first he thought they were joking. His daughter stole their purse. You realize we're medieval royalty, right? We don't have any need for your purse. The 3 demanded that the king force his daughter to give it back. It was very valuable to them. The king, annoyed that he had to get up, rolled his eyes and found his daughter's chamber. She yawned and rubbed the sleep from her eyes when 3 men and her dad arrived at her door. The king, swaying in the doorway, blinked and said that these guys, something about a purse. Did you take a purse? She gasped. She would never. She hadn't even met these men tonight. The king turned. She said she didn't do it. What more did they want? It was just a purse. They probably just misplaced it downstairs. Soldier number 1 stepped forward. He said that they didn't misplace it. She stole it. I understand that you believe that that's true, the princess interjected. Would you like to search my room? I don't want to be inhospitable, and I want to clear my name. The king clapped his hands. There, problem solved. If she somehow ended up with it, it'll be there. If not, look for it downstairs. Now, if they would excuse him, he had his kingly duties to get back to. The king bowed low, threw up in his mouth a little bit, and stumbled back down to the ballroom. The princess smiled. Her servants roused from the anteroom, and she gestured to the 3 soldiers to search to their heart's content. She smirked, they sneered, and they parted ways without searching the room. We gotta get it back, soldier number 2 said, pacing around soldier number 1's airplane hangar-sized room. Don't you worry about it. Like we said, we're in this together, Soldier Number 1 said with a smile. He flung his cloak around his shoulders. He will be back in a second. He said his wish, and in an instant, it was granted. He was standing in the princess's bedroom. Now, teleporting yourself inside a young woman's bedroom without her knowledge or consent sounds bad, even under the most justified circumstances. But maybe, to stop a thief and to get back an item that secures the livelihood of you and those you care about. And if you get in and get out and don't linger and be weird, maybe it's less bad. Unfortunately, Soldier Number 1 just had to linger and be weird. He found himself in the ornate, perfumed bedroom of the princess and saw her laying on her bed, in her night clothes, pouring out gold on top of her using the purse. You might think, hey, grab that thing and go, or at least hide. He wasn't thinking about that. He was only thinking about the beautiful princess laying on her bed and pouring gold onto herself. Then she met his eyes and screamed. Once again, he didn't have the presence of mind to just snatch the purse and teleport home. He tried to calm her, but before he could say much, the door exploded inward, and the castle guards were in the room. Soldier Number 1 shrieked, and, forgetting that he was wearing a means of teleporting out of there, made for the window. The guards rushed the man and reached out to grab him just as his feet left the edge of the window. Soldier Number 1 splashed down hard in the moat after falling a few stories, and, soaked and stinking, pulled himself to the edge. Ha ha! Got away. He closed his eyes and wished he was back home. And then he felt an arrow miss his head by an inch. His eyes snapped open, and he looked up to the wall. There, a guard held his cloak. They grabbed it as he had jumped. He looked to wade across the moat and climb back up, but more guards were rushing from the castle. If he didn't leave now, he wouldn't be able to leave. As the arrows thudded into the ground following the retreat of Soldier Number 1, the princess smiled from her window. She knew this cloak's power, and it was all hers now. Soldier Number 1 returned home, downcast. It was over then. They only had a massive castle and piles of gold that they had socked away. We also have my horn? Soldier Number 3 said. Soldiers Number 1 and 2 sighed. Hey, so they were being nice. That thing is basically useless. Soldier Number 3 said that he had thought so too, but he had been thinking of a new song. Here, check this out. There were screams from the village as the common people tried to rush into the castle. They had already pulled the drawbridge up. The enemy was at the gate. Out, among the 1,000 mounted warriors and 4 times as many foot soldiers, 3 men sat atop their horses. They weren't dressed in armor. They hadn't wished for that before losing their stuff. But the army they commanded made up for that. Yeah, apparently the horn not just summoned happy concert goers, but, depending on the song, could summon armed forces as well. The 3 soldiers rode into town and up to the walls of the castle and announced their terms. A cloak and a purse. The king said, yes. Wait, are you those guys? Soldier Number 3 smiled and waved to his royal buddy. But Soldier Number 2 slapped his hand. They were being threatening. Yes, and if he didn't bring the purse and the cloak out, they would be forced to send in their army to get it. The king panicked and said that he would have it. Please, just be merciful. He ran back inside. He arrived 10 minutes later, empty-handed. He said that he was having trouble locating the stuff. And his daughter. Could he have until the morning? He looked out on the thousands of warriors ready to storm his city. In the morning, if he didn't have the items, he would surrender the city. The 3 soldiers agreed and set up camp for the night. And yeah, the king wasn't bluffing. He couldn't find his daughter because she was already in the enemy camp. When she saw the 3 soldiers at the head of an army approach, she knew that they were using the magical horn, the 3rd and final item that the elf had given them. She put the magical purse back in its hiding place, threw the cloak over her shoulders, and in moments she was outside the soldiers' camp as their men received word that they were to set up for the night. But she wasn't the beautiful princess clothed in silk. She was a hunched old woman in tattered clothes. She even transformed the cloak itself so that it could hide in plain sight. Those soldiers hadn't had any idea what they had or how to use it. The people of the soldiers' camp shooed the woman away, who, cloak open, showed them all sorts of trinkets and baubles she had for sale. She moved from campfire to campfire all night long, making a few sales, yeah, but also becoming invisible. There were others selling among the invading soldiers, so she just had to become one of the crowd. That's how, in the early hours of the morning, and well within any perimeter guards were watching, the princess slipped into the tent of soldier number 3, took the horn that hung on the wall, whispered a wish in the cloak to make a decoy which she hung on the wall, and teleported back to her bedroom. In the morning, the 3 soldiers sat atop their horses before the castle. The time had come. Soldier number 1 boomed to the king. "Produce the purse and the cloak, or your dynasty ends today." The king hung his head. And then a horn blast came from within his castle walls. The soldiers surrounding the 3 soldiers, shook their head, blinked. What were they doing here? Soldier number 3 scrambled to his horn and blew it, but it was just sad little flat notes. He yelled out that as their commander, he ordered that they return to their positions and attack. The soldiers gestured some things to the main 3 and then left. In a few minutes, it was just the 3 soldiers standing before the gate. They smiled awkwardly and bolted before the king could get enough archers on the wall. Back home, sure, they had their massive house, but that was it. Without the cash from the purse, they couldn't hope to support the hundreds of people they had working for them. People like the driver. The guy who was created just a few weeks ago for the sole purpose of serving these 3 soldiers now had some massive existential questions to deal with, and also had to find a new job because him and everyone else were let go. Weeks passed, and then months. And seeing as they were persona non grata in the nearby town, the 3 soldiers had no way of making money. They were starving in their massive castle, worse off than even the day that the elf had found them. One morning, they found soldier number 2 packing his things. He told the other 2 that it had been fun, but it was time for them to make their own way in the world now. He loved them, and they would always be his brothers. But after everything that happened, he was just too angry. Maybe they would meet up again, but he wanted things to end on good terms. He didn't want to grow to hate them. They understood, and they let him go, hoping that someday, somehow, they would see him again. The time came that the other 2 needed to either starve or leave, so they, too, chose to go. They weren't a week out when soldier number 3 tripped in the road. What's that? They looked. Crossing the road and going into the forest on either side was a snake, but like a snake with human skin, and no, it was kind of porous in that it had pores, and it had 2 ridges on the bottom of it. Is that a nose? Soldier number 1 asked, and after a lot of walking, sure enough, it was an impossibly long human nose. They found one end of it, the tip of the nose, and so they followed it over the river and through the woods and over 3 more rivers and a field, and who was on the other end? But soldier number 2. He was lying there, groaning and sunburnt. Soldier number 1? Soldier number 3? Is that you guys? I need help, guys. A couple days ago, he had chanced upon an apple tree in the woods. It was a great find, seeing as they had all been starving, so he filled his pack with apples and continued on his way. Well, those apples contained some surprises, and not the good kind that you like. He devoured 3 apples for his dinner that night, and then laid down for bed. He freaked out the following morning when he thought it was a snake in his camp, but it wasn't. It was his nose. He coiled it like a hose and wrapped it around his shoulder before having 2 more apples for breakfast and continuing on. The nose became too heavy to carry around day 2, and he collapsed completely on day 3. He knew he was only prolonging the problem, but he only had the apples in his pack. So even though it just made his nose heavier, he had no choice but to ration them until he found help. And now his help had found him. His buddies nodded. Sure, okay. You know what? They could figure this out. After trying to pull his quarter-mile-long nose like a garden hose and catching a donkey, and then subsequently almost killing a donkey by piling hundreds of pounds of nose on its back, they were out of ideas. Yeah, you guys really messed this up, the three soldiers heard from behind them. They shrieked and saw the elf in the red cloak standing there. I gave you unlimited wealth, a teleportation cloak, and a way to make an army from nothing. And it was stolen by one person who had none of those things, the elf noted. You know, I should let her keep them. She actually earned it, but I'll give you guys another chance. Those apples are my apples. And there's an antidote to the, anaconda nose thing. He pointed to a pear tree. That pear tree, yes, the one right next to them. The same as all the other ones that soldier number 2 had passed on the way here. If he ate those pears, his nose would go back to normal. He didn't want to overdo it, though, and get a skeleton nose thing. The soldiers asked why the elf even had those. Why plant multiple trees to make people's noses grow super long and then shrink? The elf narrowed his eyes. He didn't have to explain himself to them. This wasn't the only thing he had going on. After eating the pears, soldier number 2, sore and very much in need of a shower and some salve for the underside of his nose, rose. And now I have given you the tools you need in order to get your magical items back. The soldiers looked at each other. Pinocchio fruit? How would that help them get their stuff back? The elf pinched the bridge of his nose. You know, if he was talking to the princess, she would have figured this out by now. She did all of her stuff with a cup of wine. The rest of it was just unforced errors on the part of the soldiers. All right, circle up. Here's the plan. Knock, knock, the princess's maid said. The princess turned. The maid announced that there's a guy out in the courtyard, a gardener's boy, he calls himself. Though he's really more of a full-grown man. He says that he has some apples for you. And I know guys are always popping by with stuff wanting to win your hand and all that. And that apples are probably the least impressive gift so far. But these apples actually look, quote, fine and beautiful as were never seen here before. They're the talk of the village. People were freaking out about how good these apples looked. Not a lot going on in the Middle Ages, is there? The princess asked. There is not, the maid replied. Anyway, did the princess want some apples? The princess sighed. Sure, send them up. Not only did the apples look great, but they tasted great too. She ate a few of them and then went to bed. For the following week, no one saw or heard from the princess at all. Then a call went out to all doctors, healers, and why not wizards. The princess was ill with a strange malady and she needed help. So who should show up but soldier number 1 in a doctor's coat with one of those shiny reflective head things. He passed the king a vial, and since taking potions from people who say they're doctors and or wizards is a very smart thing to do, the king gave it to his daughter. In one night, the weight of her elephant nose dropped by half. The healer was brought back. He had more medicine, which he passed along to the princess. In the days since they had cured soldier number 2, they had been distilling the apples and pears down into potions. When the princess drank the potion she received from the doctor the next day, her elephant nose grew 10 times longer. Her bedroom was now more nose than room. The following morning, the doctor returned and found himself looking at spear points. His medicine hadn't worked. He nodded. He was afraid of that. He needed to speak with the princess directly. Hello, princess, the princess heard. She fluffed the nose underneath her so that she could get comfortable and looked to the door. Hello. Oh. Hi. Soldier number 1 smiled. He said that he was a wizard, of course. It looked like one of his potions had worked, but, the other one that was supposed to cure her only made things worse. She nodded. Yes, it did. Soldier number 1 produced a vial from his pack. This should do it, but something was working against his magic. The princess sat back against her nose beanbag chair. And what was working against his magic? Soldier 1, who still thought that he was just nailing this deception, asked if the princess had stolen something recently. The princess smirked. Yes, she had. The faux physician gasped. Well, then she must return those things right away. The princess nodded. Yep, that's where she thought this was going. First, the antidote. The physician dug through his pack and found the distilled pear, the one that would turn the princess back. He was about to hand it to her when he pulled his arm back. How did he know that she would honor the agreement? She replied that it was magic, right? The potion wouldn't work until she confessed and returned the items. The physician glanced from side to side. Yes, that's right. He handed her the vial. She pointed underneath his feet. If he moved her coiled nose to the side and went 3 stones up and 2 stones left from the door, he would find a loose one. Underneath that were the things that she stole. As the physician counted the stones, the princess continued, Yeah, the 3 guys she stole these from were just like complete idiots. She was one princess, and she outsmarted them when they had the power to make all their wishes come true. How incompetent do you need to be? The physician chuckled awkwardly. He bet they were smart, honest mistakes. All right, come on. The princess said she didn't even need to use the items, really. Gold, she had it. Power, people to attend to her every whim. She was medieval royalty. An army, once again, royalty. The princess just did it for fun, really. Maybe when they had their stuff back, they'd be a little smarter with it next time. The physician scooped it up and said that he would take it to the affected parties. The princess drank the potion, and in moments her room was no longer filled with no's. As the physician walked off, not realizing that he actually didn't ask any details about the one she had stolen from, and thus had thoroughly blown his cover, the princess and her maid watched from the window. There's no shame in being beaten by the best, the princess said. The maid turned to her mistress. They didn't seem like I said there's no shame in being beaten by the best. As for our heroes, they mainly kept to themselves, but seeing as each other's friendship was all they really wanted, they lived happily ever after. Oh, and they did not try to mess with princesses ever again.